Going live on all the channels. Here we are, back for more fun. Monifa, it's always great to see you.
And you, Susie, thank you so much. This is so fun. Welcome to Verve and Vision, folks. This is episode 6. We are rocking it.
We're steaming right along. We're so excited to share everything that's coming up, but especially the content of this book, The Big Leap. We'll be wrapping up our conversation down there after we get up to speed on everything else that has been happening in the last month. But as we've been saying, Monifa, in time and on time, the right time for the different topics in all of our books so far to be coming up. And boy, has The Big Leap been illuminating some interesting insights.
I saw some amazing little ahas, and I realized something that I never even relate to the book is something that is literally part of my daily life and how I like deal with things. So I'm excited to I get that into the episode because I think it's really powerful just by itself. Also, did you realize that there's a branding technique in this book?
Oh, how
Did you notice
sly.
it?
Very interested. I know that's one of your passions. I love your signature branding insights, super powerful. Tuning into what is inherently, innately what we're all about makes it a lot easier to shine when we're not putting on a mask. Ooh, I can't wait to dig into that. Are we starting at the end? Where do we begin? There's so much happening. First of all, it's nice to hear your voice because Monifa is just coming back to us from a 5-day silent retreat.
That's the truth. For 5 days of silence, no electronics. So if computer is texting, when I literally live off my computer and if my calendar doesn't beep at me, I don't know what to do with myself. Um, and like no talking, no reading. I was like, oh my gosh, didn't find out until I got there. No music, no journaling. Those are the ones that are just like cold shivers down my. I'm just like, no music. How do you live like that? No, I mean, honestly, like on a day to day basis, I would probably not even notice if I hadn't listened to something. But when you're like, what do I do with myself and for the whole of the 24 hours of a day for 5 days, it's pretty intense.
It's a lot. And with your beloved around the house too, like it's even harder to share space with somebody that there are so many things we don't even think about, exchanges that we have on our partners. And one of the things you were sharing with me was no eye contact.
No eye contact. And I know like Daryl is very much that he wants that personal connection, you know? It's something that he really values. And so I wasn't able to quite fulfill that one fully. I tried to do my best to just kind of stay in spaces where it wouldn't even be a question. But overall, I just had to make the allowance because most of the people were in spaces that 0 people were around. So they had gotten either to the retreat center or they'd gotten into their own little hotel room or however they managed to do it. But
That's
yeah,
a
so
great idea.
that was the suggestion because you're not even supposed to like if you go out and walk and you're not supposed to eye contact unless they are trying to get your attention and then you just you can say I'm in silence. But and overall wasn't like whip you have to do this. It was just these are the parameters and just use your own judgment and yeah, and that was it.
Was
no
the
other no other
invitation.
instruction. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Powerful.
Intense. It was
And
intense.
last week we had was it only last week? Oh my gosh, what a wild ride. We had the full moon in Capricorn and life has been lifing. I know. And I keep hearing from so many different fronts. So there's also that, right? I mean, life when it's on an even keel, maybe it's easier to hold our own counsel, to step into silence. But when things are popping up and flying by, it's
Wow. when life
Positive.
is happening and it's happening around you, right? Because like people are still living, it's still Friday night for somebody, right? I might not be hearing my music, but I'm hearing music. Um, so like being able to maintain my focus and my just priorities of that timing, that was a part of the experience. But that's how I always think of meditation, because you never know what's going to come. Like in your brain, like your brain comes up with some crazy junk in that silence. And so if you follow it too far, you're just not going to get what you want to out of it. You're going to end up circling on the patterns that, why has this always happened to me? And, all the things. And literally your mind is going to bring them up just to entertain you, right? Like they don't want you thinking about anything. The ego, right? Doesn't want you to think about anything too real. But eventually, like one of the things over the amount of time, like if it was just one day, if it was just 2 days, you could just like, I would have been like, oh, I've seen things I've never saw before. I got great little visions, new insights into what I love, right? Like, and so I could have been like, ooh, I got my candy going home, right? And not ever get to the place where like the ego has to say, I give up. Like where the ego is like, it's just like, there's a place where the ego is just like, um, it wants to keep stating the pattern that cycles us. And then you basically say, am I going to let that happen? Or I'm going to spin into another story? Or am I just going to let it, be with it? And then it starts to unravel because the brain is just like, I need to get out of this pain somehow. And it'll actually shove you the solution. It'll like,
Slipping a
it'll like
message under the
just to get
door.
out of it, which is what happened because like, yeah, that fourth day, I was cycling and I was just like, oh, it's like this triggered thing happened, which was just shouldn't have been triggering at all. But in the silence, of course it was. And it took me 2 hours just to recognize that I was running several stories, but they were all kind of consistent in one way, which was that I was unsatisfied and somebody should satisfy me was basically the story.
That's an interesting
And
story.
yeah, I mean, it's a great story.
If we look back on our very first book in Unbound, thinking about the big ask, claiming our desire. But it's nice to unwind that too. Where is it coming from? What is it arising from?
Well, it's
Mm.
so interesting because the first few days, again, happy. I'm like, this is vacation. I don't have to think. Mm-mm-mm-mm. And then, and then that fourth day, I was like mad at Daryl for stuff, food stuff. Like, why do you get to have fun stuff? Like, and it
Petulant
was,
ego. How dare you?
and I was just like, I was just so annoyed. And I'm like, why am I so annoyed? I haven't felt this way in a while. What is this? I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied with how fast you're doing things. I'm not satisfied with the way you said we're going to do something. You're not doing it. And I'm not satisfied with like, and it just was spinning this story that day in those first couple hours, those first few hours. Then when I came back, then it started to like intensify in my energy field because I was able to get back there. And then over that night, yeah, the next morning is when it started to unravel. But you see how much time that took? Like, it's a lot of time. And that's with intense focus, like with me not letting myself continue to spin out, right? I
Right.
was like, no, just shift back into, just beingness, just get there, we'll worry about the rest later. Right?
It really does indicate how important it is to give ourselves that opportunity to work through layers. We get to one breakthrough, one insight. We're like, oh, that was great. Okay, back to what I was doing. But to really give yourself that void of space with no distraction, with not even journaling, which blew my mind. I would want to be taking notes on all the brilliant insights that I was trying not to hold on to in my brain. So I love that. I love how it unfolded for you and sharing it. And you say you would do it again.
I would totally do it again, which sounds a little like self-torture, but I would totally do it again. Like I I did question a bit about the journaling thing. It's like, yeah, what if like your mind is going to want to hold on to those moments of like insight and all the things and yeah, it definitely was like a little felt like lost when she said that. Um and it was just like in the process though, I'm so glad. Like I'm so glad because what allowed me to unravel on the fourth day was the recognition that just because those things felt good didn't make them any more real. Like it was satisfying to my ego that I was having visions, seeing symbols, seeing, like it was satisfying to my ego that I was having like proof of evidence of what I already understood about light and vibration and all this stuff. Like it was very exciting in that way. And yet if you can't maintain it, it's not real, right? So if I go into the fourth day and like I'm no longer seeing like how awesome everything is, then the true thing that's not allowing me to be there all the time is what's coming up, right? So that's one of my reframes that happened overnight. That night, fourth night, was that the good stuff and the negative thinking were both not being, but both equally for me. They were for me,
Mm.
right? That idea of everything is for you, nothing is against you. It's all to you, to get you to into that next possibility and your full evolution of self-expression and all that stuff. So that's what was really like, I was just like, I don't know if I would have been so clear on what needed to shift about how I was relating to those thoughts, like what I was making that mean to who I am being, right? If I didn't have that, I had to let go of the positive things because I could only remember so much. And then I had to, and then I can equally let go of the negative things. And then what's left is the truth behind it, right? So that was what really allowed the deep insights.
5 days is just enough.
And it was a good amount of time because it is also very tiring. You cannot imagine how tiring it is to be in focus and to like call your mind back out of nonsense and like
Our
hold the
minds do
space
love
of
some nonsense.
beingness. Like, oh my gosh, it was so much work in that way. And the body feels it. Like, sitting, yeah, it's tiring, but not like that. Like I can't tell you, I was going to sleep so fast every night. You would think you'd be up with too much body energy and all this. No, no, not a problem. Not a problem. I promise you, even if you're a physical person, you will go to sleep
Yes,
at the end of the
I
night.
love it. I love it so much. Now we also want to explore energies today before we get into the book. So let's talk about what's going on. We're coming out of that full moon. Who's around the corner?
Yes, I think it's so cool because like coming out of that energy you're talking about, like a big stuff is happening because it's Capricorn energy is big Capricorn energy of like self-love and like what does that mean and like how do we really honor our true selves and that ability to recognize our own being, and then act on it, which is authenticity, right? So like how can we do that and like not shift into these masks and all these other things to kind of self-protect and to love all of our experiences, even if they look like failure to other people and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so that was a great place to do this work in because that's what it was about. It's like, can I keep coming back to my true self, right, over that meditation? But if you're out in the world, like it looks like evidence that you may have experiences that look like failure and it may look like things aren't going well and you might get sick and you might do crazy things like run into other cars, not naming names. And like that full moon, I mean, it's powerful energy, right? And how are we taking responsibility for that? So if you're coming from that, it's like, what did you have to get rid of what it meant to fail, what it meant to
Mm.
have that negative appearance? And can you still love yourself? And can you find what's to love about that and what to actually be proud of yourself for letting it teach you what's good and what's fully you, you know? So like coming out of that or going into July is this place of understanding our um, our true magic, which is the full moon, which is cool, but also the new moon and July 5th in Cancer is about dynamism. It's like that gift of dynamism in Gene Keys, and like it's in quantum human design is provocation, which is
Hmm.
whew, intense. Like it's this intense, violent energy, which is part of the definition of the shadow of provocation in Gene Keys, but it's just the name in quantum human design, right? This challenge of not letting these challenges that we're experiencing, those failures we are experiencing, keep us out of alignment with our faith and abundance. So that's from Karen's perspective, is that it's about, well, does that failure, does that perception of that negativity keep you out of the possibility of receiving all there is to receive, noticing what resources are available, and being able to act on that is a lot of the like culminating energy in the full moon. So it's like ooh, and we all need this. Like we all have been feeling unresourceful, like pressured, right? And there's so much energy, and it's not doesn't feel like light things. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I just want to feel better today. No, it's just like my life may fall apart any given moment. Like people are gonna be like, what happened to Monifa?
Has anybody else been feeling this lately? Like I said, life has been lifing. I am finding this validating. I'm finding it reassuring and comforting. It's not me, it's it. But boy, has this ride been rocky.
Rocky, and that provocation, right? It's not just, oh, something happened. Oh, gosh darn it, I broke a glass, right? It's personal, right? Uh, Richard Rudd was talking about how violence is actually it's being provoked to violence because it's personal and triggering, especially because of what you've been through before, right? And so that's what creates this explosion of action primally that can be based on the fear that of being trapped, of being um, like I don't know, just feeling like there's no other way out, so you feel like you have to act out, right? And so yeah, so that's a big part of this energy. So if you're feeling triggered, maybe it's about, like, some of us get energy early. Like I'm already feeling some of this, right? Um, July 5th is the actual new moon. So usually most people feel it like the day before, the day after. So just notice if you're feeling personally attacked at all. One of the stories that he had about it was like, if somebody was trying to make you feel guilty, how would they do it? Right? They're not going to be like, you should feel guilty, right? Because you would automatically defend yourself from that, right? But they might suggest it. How would they suggest it? Maybe by tone of voice. Oh, it's okay. You should have been paying attention, but it's okay. So I forgive you. You're fine, right? It's not even the words, right? It's how you say it. It's the tone. It's what's under the words. It's the underlying thoughts that provoke. And it's like, because you in your head are like, I should have been paying more attention. You're saying that to yourself. I da 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 da, right? And so I'm feeding into it by suggesting it. This is so much of like what happens with like what they call it, gaslighting.
That's
With
exactly what I was
the
just thinking.
exact words. It's usually an implication
Mm-hmm.
based on what they know about you, right? And that's why it's so effective, because your subconscious negativity is probably already repeating those things to you in pattern over and over and over again.
Yes, it
And
gives you the space to create your own. Yeah.
yeah, so you feel that? You see how that's
Woo!
challenges, like if we're still calling ourselves that failure, how easily we'll be triggered in this energy. And instead, what we want to do in that new moon is what are we creating? And that's the power of this energy. It's the
Mm.
dynamism, right? Dynamism is the gift here. So it's about perpetual kinetic energy. This is like the childlike energy. And like, where do they get all that energy from is usually the question. Where do you get your energy from? This is the answer. So it's about
Mm.
deconditioning from whatever you've learned to make you feel like you can only be triggered. And also kind of comes into the full moon. It's like, what are we having to like keep that from being the slowdown of what our possible growth is, right?
Mm.
Like the guilt, the shame, the reasons why we suck. Da da da. Right? So that's why we had the first full moon, is to get rid of all that stuff so you're not overly triggered and you can move into that faith and abundance and that creative resourcefulness. This is what and this is, it's so funny because I wanted Susie to talk about resourcefulness as well. And it's because of the book, but I couldn't find it. But then it's like right here.
In time and on time. It's exactly what we need to be talking about right now.
Yeah, like how have you have tapped into that? Okay, how can I be in that resourcefulness? Where are my resilience basket?
Mm. And how do we keep filling that up instead of feeling like there's a leak in the bucket? There's a leak in this bucket. My juice is draining out. And we talked before coming online today, and I talked about sharing some flower essences that go along with the energies. It's like I knew that we need to buckle up for this cycle. That is a big part of it. A really big part of it is calling on my Bach flower essences, because they can cut the noise of some of these emotions, right? Provocation, feeling guilt and shame, and all of that. That really helps me. And finding this space and the perspective to see objectively, which it sounds like was one of the powerful takeaways from your silent meditation, and makes me want to claw out 5 days in my schedule so that I can do something like that. Because I love the quote. I have no idea who to attribute it to. It's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, right? And when your ego has the mic and you're just responding, you are just reacting. It's all reaction, it's reflex. And being able to get that perspective and say, oh, I see what you're reacting to. You got your feelings hurt there. You really invested a lot in this, and that kind of blew up, didn't it? Like, it doesn't have to be personal, but it's hard
Mhm.
sometimes to not make it personal, right? To not
Mhm.
make ourselves right. Then that ego is coming in. Well, it's not my fault because I'm right, they're wrong, and starting to assign blame and fortify ourselves. So I think that perspective is powerful, and I think I'm more able to get that perspective with flowers. They help me calm down and take a breath.
It's like woosah. That's my favorite phrase after Bad Boys. But yeah, like to just hoorah. I mean, like even, but I mean, it's a real thing, by the way. Like, because if you say the sound and you let the breath move out, it's a very releasing sound. It's like a cooling breath. Anyways, but
Yes.
yeah, so
Cooling breaths.
that cooling breath. So maybe I came up because you need it. Maybe you need a woosah and like. maybe like, especially if it makes you laugh a little bit, like it makes me laugh a little bit, just that little bit of laughter can take you out of that automatic pattern
Oh, it
response, trigger
sure
response,
can.
like,
Powerful.
so, like, not, let's not take laughter for granted, either. But the exciting energy coming through here, for this gift of dynamism is how do we, the question really is, how do we access it? Because it's been covered up by responsibility and, I need to be smart about this so I can make the right decision and all of the mind stuff. And so what we want to decondition that stuff, that those stories that made us feel that way. And then the creating is through what you love, what calls you and speaks to your heart, what makes you feel good,
Mm.
right? So, like, again, your brain is probably already giving it to you, but we've covered it up. We're going to maybe get into that when we talk about the book, but we'll definitely get into it when we do our book club. Um,
We will.
Sometimes we run out a little time here, but um, we're doing our best for you folks out here. We're
We got
going to
a
get
lot
you
of
there.
ground. We got a lot of ground to cover. So, a couple of the flower essences that have been coming up, I've been making notes. I've been
Good, good,
making
good.
notes as things come to mind because I'm not on my silent retreat. Cherry plum is the essence that helps you restore flow. My mentor always described it the one that lets the kink out of the hose, which of course is super relevant too as we're looking at ways that we block our genius. So we're going to come back to that in the big leap. That might be the theme of this conversation, is cherry plum to restore flow and open up access to that energy that we can call on. Star of Bethlehem is a beautiful healing flower essence. It restores our connection to spirit and it helps us release the old wounds and scars of trauma, those bruises that we hold on to. Star of Bethlehem is beautiful. So that one is calling out to me right now too. And pine is a great flower essence for releasing guilt and self-judgment. And I feel like we could all use some of that right now, especially if we've been cueing into, if we're reading into what people are saying and, taking on some of that, unspoken framing, acquiring some of that feeling of guilt or feeling like we're being gaslit. Pine is a great one to clear that, to release what is not yours. You do not need to hold on to that. Those are some good flowers.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. How yummy is that to have that extra support and allow yourself to be resourced by these wonderful essences. Oh, thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, maybe you should tell them real quick. Like, you can find them at some stores, right? And then
Yes, you can find Bach flower essences at most natural pharmacies, health food stores, that sort of thing. Here in Southern California, Sprouts, also throughout Arizona, they've got them. You can find them online. If you have any issues finding them, reach out to me, Susie Vine on Facebook, and I can help you find those. Also, Rescue Remedy is a really common combination of 5 Bach flower essences, and those are really easy to find in most regular pharmacies. They're beautiful, they're subtle, they're very dilute but energetically potent, so they're safe for anybody to use, and they're one of my favorite topics. So I can go on. I have some podcasts on this topic, so I always love to share resources. Let me know.
yes, yes. And she's brilliant at this. She has a whole class, so make her give it to you. um,
Students, welcome.
exactly. So yeah. So real quick on the full moon, we're talking about the gated conservation on Carrie Curry Parker.
And this is a
It's really
second full moon in Capricorn. So we're coming
second full
back to
moon in
some of those
Capricorn.
themes.
Capricorn is not leaving you alone this year, y'all. It's on your behind.
It's not
It's
done with
the
us.
dragon year, by the way, which is a similar archetype. And
Oh,
so
I don't
that's why,
know
because
that.
dragon is not a let's chill type of animal.
It is not. It is not. My husband and I are both
Yeah.
dragons, so that's very interesting. And he is a Capricorn dragon at that.
Ah, ah,
Uh,
wow. Yeah, I have a really close friend that's a dragon. Oh, you should look at her video. Jen Yang. She's the one that we do the Authenticity Project with on our YouTube channel.
Marvelous.
And so yeah, she just put out one about kind of what's going on coming to mid-year. And yeah, and I have a little behind the scenes on that too. And it's not been easy by any stretch of that imagination. So yeah, absolutely. So this Capricorn energy is really kind of, it's wanting us to build these solid understandings of how to be ourselves and in creation, right? Like creating from that understanding that we are here as self for a reason, and so fully embracing that. But this Capricorn energy is like, get in there. So this gate of conservation, yeah, it's like this is about not resisting what's changing. Okay, this is about not letting your fear take over your ability to continue to be resourceful and to embrace the new you, the way that you now can see yourself, now that we've let go of these stories, meaning that my personality is failure. My personality is I can
Mm.
only expect so much from life, right? Um, and so yeah, so what change am I resisting is a great question to ask yourself here.
Haha.
um, Now, in the Gene Keys, the shadow is limitation, the gift is realism. Sorry, let me say that again. The gift is realism, and the city is justice. What I love about the subtitle here is that it's the common sense of magic. So this is
Oh.
about, now remember, full moons in my wheelhouse, and this on this podcast is release. So what are we letting go of, right? And the letting go of is the shadow, in my opinion. It's this closed circuit thinking and restrictive patterns. Again, have we built restrictive patterns based on who we thought we were, and have we let go of all of those? So it's helping us again to find the right grounding of who we be in real life, right? And forcing, this is a really big lessons for Capricorns too, but like forcing is not the answer. It's not going to help you. um, what will help you? Time, right? Can you feel that? Like 5 days, not one day, not 2 days, 5 days to allow that old pattern to unwind, right? So like finding space for yourself, I feel like is a big topic right now, something that's coming up for my clients, and like making space for yourself, I think was probably a lot of the big first part of the year, and finding space for yourself and knowing where your space is and owning your space is probably that Capricorn energy. Rootedness, groundedness, mountain dragon, right? Like dragons are very protective of their layers for a reason. Like all their gems are there. So like be protective of your gems, right? But yeah, um I'm sorry, were you gonna say something?
Nope, I love that. Be protective of your
Yeah.
gems.
Yeah. I think it's so important. Like I feel like we forget that. Be protective of your vision, of your gifts, of your gems. Yeah, there's a quote I wanted to share from here. Shadow concerns the human over reliance on structure and the consequent death of something very special indeed, magic. Magic
Mm.
refers to events that do not follow logical sequential laws. Magic is spontaneous, highly mutative, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. Its greatest quality is that it's beyond meaning or understanding. So, are we being overly structured? Are we being too rigid? Are we being unstructured? Are we just letting, oh yeah, just going the flow? Like that's part of my identity as a spiritual light bearer. I'm just going with the flow. Like, and there's no sense of, I know who I am and I honor who I am, right? Which is the whole beginning part of the year. We're learning from that, right? One more quote, I got to get it out. Understanding the limitations of the world of form and therefore know the laws of manifesting within the world of form. Work with the existing laws and traditions of the world and introduce change through them rather than in spite of them. So this is a little bit conflicting, but at the same time, it's kind of this understanding that if we're creating structure out of fear, then it's a no bueno all around, because it's going to get you stuck into, you're making your own prison. That's why we feel like we've got to fight to get out that violence, right? So, like, and then all of a sudden, like, people are always want something from me. I got to protect my energy. And like, now we have like such big walls up that nobody can be like, I was interested in your services, right? They can't get over the wall. And you're like, do you want something from me? Like, what do you want me to do? Do I have to be responsible? Right? Like, it brings up that thing. But if we're like if we're building those walls out of fear. Now, if we're building structure based on natural laws, our natural way of being, our natural cycles, and just the natural laws of the universe, then we understand that there's just certain ways that time unfolds in our experience of 3D reality. So, like, let it happen. So I feel like that's our big lesson from full moon. It's like, what are we letting go of that is creating old patterns of prison building and wall building? And how are we allowing that wall to come down so we can allow the abundance and the goodness and the magic to take form? So I think it's going to be good. It's going to be a good month.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. When we're aware, when we're open, when we're non-judgmental, recognizing ourselves, supporting ourselves through these trials of life. And so that makes me think of rock water, stop forcing, also letting it happen. Rock water helps us break free of that rigid attachment to structure and go with the flow. And impatience really helps to heal our relationship with time and letting things unfold.
Wow, I love that. That was one of my favorites when I did the class with you. Is the rock water. I think you put it in one of my mixes, right? You probably don't remember, but
I might have. I can check my notes.
Rock water. And what's the other one?
Thank you, Monifa, for posting these. Rock water and impatience, spelled like impatience, but with an
both
S
of these
instead
are
of a
mine.
CE.
Yeah, and it's probably just me. I think it's probably just my wheelhouse right there.
And you're so great. Thank you for taking notes. I can pop these up on the screen because they're, a little abstract maybe for some folks. But again, let me know if you have questions about flower essences. I love to go on in that regard.
Oh, so good. Yeah, and they're so good, and especially for the really highly sensitives, you get a lot of physical reactions, and you kind of need something that's not going to give you another load to take on. Like,
That's
sometimes,
so
like Susie was telling us that essential oils can be a little dense, a little rough, a little abrupt for the system. So maybe you need something a little less abrupt.
Yes. Be gentle with yourselves because we're doing a lot of big stuff right now. Life is highlighting a lot of things, bringing things to our attention.
Yeah. So much to our attention.
We'll breathe through it.
Wow.
We'll use Monifa's Oman's methods to breathe through it. She's got a lot of great resources there in her Get Vocal group and on her page. And I do believe right now there's a fantastic program kicking off. Did you just have your first session last week?
Yeah, we did our intro before the 5 days. And so this week is going to be getting deeper into it, and we're diving in. So it's not too late to join. It's going to be awesome. It really is, because I'm in this space that's just amazing, and I hope to pass on some amazing energy. as well. So join us if you are at all interested in creating healing and transformation with your voice for yourself or for others.
Yes. Vocal alchemy is winding up, hitting high gear, making good use of all the energies coming up this summer and helping you to ride the wave. Ride the wave. Own your stage.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what about the book? What were your like huge how are
Well,
you feeling?
there's so many things I want to integrate. Where to go first? I feel kind of like starting at the end to come back to the beginning. Einstein time really landed with me. What do you think about this whole unsubscribing from Newtonian time? It's really interesting to think about that. The underlying scarcity of this feeling, this knowledge that we have that time is outside of ourselves, and what could happen if we claim authority over our time. We have as much
Mm,
time as we need.
yeah, that we are the creators of our time. That was the thing that has made the most impact since I read the book, which I can't remember, like a long time ago, like at least 5 years, if not 6 or 7. So yeah, so probably more. But yeah, it was one of those that actually stuck that I was like, this is true. Like I don't have to feel pressure all the time. One of the things that made me realize was true was one of my first kind of musical vocal ahas was that time feels different depending upon what music you're playing, what feeling or mood you're creating. All of those
Yes.
things can give you a skewed perspective, some would say, but you create your own time portal essentially when you're building that scene supposedly in music, right? So that's my biggest takeaway. It's one of the things that's my first thing of like not talking about how overwhelmed I am, not talking about not having enough time to do something. This is one of the reasons why I
Not buying into
always
that
will avoid,
story.
yeah, because I stopped allowing that to be my story about what was true, what was going on. And I had a lot of great results in the beginning, and it's definitely like a bedrock of a lot of the things that I notice in my clients when they're being triggered and overwhelmed.
Mm.
And it's one of my really big bright lights that says, "Ooh, something else is going on here." Right? And it really tells me what the energy field will allow. Because if you can't create your own spaciousness and your space and sense of time, then yeah, of course you're overwhelmed. The life is crazy right now, you know?
Yeah, and we are against forces that understand psychologically how to trigger us and hold us captive in order to take more of our time. And so the more we
Mhm.
can see, again, that ability to get objective and see how we're engaging with social media, with email, with the way that we commit our time to other people and why we give it away. Whoosa.
That's real stuff. And like that's totally July too. Like what are you making space for? Like in your understanding of perception. And then what are you creating, because you have to create your own time. You have to create time for what you want. You know, yeah, it's really powerful. It's really powerful. How about the USM, which I can't remember what it means right now. The
Oh,
upper,
the ULP.
no, that's not ULP is the upper limit problem, which is kind of the one of the main bases of the books,
Right.
right? The USM is like the something mantra.
Oh, ultimate success mantra.
That one.
Yes.
Yes, I
Powerful
love
good.
that.
Powerful
Good stuff.
good. You can make
I
your own, but the one that he
am.
shares in the book that he says he has refined through working with so many clients.
Yeah.
Wow, powerful. And when you land on a
It's
phrase that can be that universal, that's
it's so great because it doesn't have a lot of times we try to use affirmations that have, qualifiers and or, um, just what we don't want essentially is in the, like, don't do that. Affirmations about what you want, not what you don't want. But yeah, but the one here is I expand in abundance, success, and love every day as I inspire others around me to do the same, which I think we can all embrace pretty fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Abundance, success, and love, and inspiring others to do the same. That's the
Yes.
kind of expansion I will invite in.
It's actually, again, I think this is one of my takeaways from the book as well. It's amazing what becomes just like part of your life. But yeah, this is really where I get my essence of prosperity from. It got clarified in the Gene
Mm.
Keys work, but this is where the essence came from. You know, it's like, yes, that's what I want. Like, it was so clear. Yeah, I loved it.
So great, so great. And I love how, there's the temptation in the midst of all else that I have on my list of get tos, to look more into his professional history. He talks about having spoken for years and collaborated with his wife in their business and coached businesses as well as executives. And then to distill it all down into this book, which is really digestible. Sometimes I struggle to make our deadline with the book club commitments that we make, but this book is really digestible for the size and the scope of the ideas that he is sharing, which is really powerful. So
he's
yeah,
very
don't be
clear. He
afraid to
sets it up really well. It's just enough story to help you get a sense of it, right? But it's not like, oh my gosh, this is really
right.
dense information.
How much more of
You
this do
know,
I have to
how am I gonna make it?
go there?
But yeah, one of my favorite quotes from the book, and this is, I think, around the first chapter or so, is from Fritz Perls, is where he gets it from. Fear is excitement without breath. This was again one of those takeaways that has always stayed with me. It's like, this is why I'm always, one of my first things when my clients are telling the story for the 18th time, to us, like, breathe, breathe.
Yeah, transform fear through the power of breath. Fear is excitement without breath. That's super powerful, because I think sometimes we do get caught up in the emotion of a moment. We feel subject to the emotion, or we're trying so hard to resist it, we can't really get a good look at it. And to recognize that we're not subject to our emotions, but we can change. If we flip our perspective, we can flip the entire thing. We can use it to our advantage. Then excitement is energizing and fear is contracting.
Which is, again, it's that 60. That's part of that astrology that's coming in this month. It's that fear is the contraction, right? It's kind of 39 too. Fear is the contraction around violence, right? And then the breath, like the breath and the movement outward, would be dynamism, and that fear of restriction, or of structure that restricts, and then the breath of moving into. And that's something that's, genius, like, that's what the genius is all about. It's about being able to be in movement, in motion. And I think, he says that that gift is realism. And I always think, when I see realism now, as magic, because it's true. Because magic, even alchemy, if you think about alchemy, it's like very specific, it's very detailed, and there's a science and a structure to it. And so, even our nature witches, all of our wonderful, right? There's a timing to things. There's a season. There's a time to pick the flowers, and da 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 da, right? So that allowing that time to unfold the magic is like, everything to me. And in that statement, But yeah. And then the
Yes.
zones. How did you feel about those zones?
So interesting. So we've got the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. Right? Is it
Yeah.
really those
Well,
three, or are
the
those the only ones I want
order,
to look at?
that's the ones I care about. No, the order is like zone of incompetence, zone of
Incompetence, yes, for sure.
competence, zone of genius, zone of excellence, which is what we always kind of get confused. Like, I'd rather be a genius. But but yeah, I find like those distinctions are pretty interesting. Like the zone of incompetence, what I have is things we're not good at. The zone of competence I have is competent in things others do well. So yeah, you're good at it. Um, yeah, so oh, that's where I have your name. That's it. Because I think like who you refer to. That's what came to me because they're like, well, if you can do it well, why would you not just do it? A lot of us been taught to just, clean our own bedroom, right? But like knowing when to pull somebody in when you can be spending your time and your energy on something that is more value and brings
Mhm.
you more value is a skill, folks. And I think that's where I have you there. I don't know why.
Bookmark. There's a bookmark on that.
Bookmark. But I guess maybe because I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what. If if you think you're, gonna self-start on your resilience path, that's not a thing, folks. If you're overwhelmed, you are nowhere near resilience. So you should probably call Susie. Maybe it says referral. Ask Susie. I don't know what I meant by
Let's
that, but it's
chat.
obviously perfect timing.
I love it. I love it. Little snippet for later. It'll come back. We can talk about it next week.
A genius is where people normally get paid. It's like what you can consistently be relied upon and that others will pay you good money for because you do it well. And that to me was like the aha of the places. I was like, why would I want more than that? I just want that because I was still in crappy jobs that nobody cared about me, like that kind of feeling. So, like, shifting even into that zone of genius would feel pretty good from that standpoint. Um, this one is zone of excellence, right? The next one, zone of excellence.
It's
Do
excellence and then
extremely well.
genius because he's all about living in your genius. So, excellence is what you do really great and you get
Oh, and
paid
tell me
and
about it.
recognized for. So, a lot of
Oh, I
people tend to
see.
stall out in excellence. And they're like, well, this is what people appreciate me for. So, this is safe. I'm safe being excellent.
That's so okay. I don't know why I have that backwards here. But yeah, that's the thing. And so the zone of genius
Feels
is
unsafe.
not as yummy feeling. There's a lot of unknown in the zone of genius.
Invitation to grow into a whole new, previously unoccupiable level.
Yeah.
And what do
And
you
that's
think about
mine.
genius? I really love in the book where he's encouraging you to ask yourself some questions. We're going to dig into that next week about what is your genius. And one of the things that really stuck with me is he's describing, it's not, I am a genius salesperson. It's not a job description. I am a genius at this job. It is an aspect of something that is maybe in that work that you do brilliantly, but also in other things. It's permeating your life. And it even, he says, often comes from something that you learned in childhood, something that helped you navigate the difficulties of seeing the world as a child and not understanding the relation of all the things. But it's a tool you start developing then. And then it becomes so second nature to you that a lot of times we might overlook it and not put as much regard in it as I think that it deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest danger is that trusting that next evolution. But that again is that's what's coming up in that 39 of the new moon in Cancer because it's basically saying this is you can't go back to the old you. The old you is the zone of excellence. The new you is the zone of genius. What is up for you now and moving
Imagine what you
forward?
could create.
Yes. And that's the thing. If we keep trying to get back to what was stability, what was success, what was, um, keep trying to get that back, then we miss out on the resources for what is going to move us into the higher spiral, which is what Pat is talking about. I can't make the comment go. How do you highlight it?
Oh, here we go. Let's bring Pat's up. Yes. I know I've been hearing from Pat over the last couple of weeks. I know she's been listening to the book and having some ahas. And yes, you and I have talked about that spiral of evolution. You know, there's so much to it. We want to think it's a linear path, that we can see the path and we know what to expect, and we're going to hedge our bets and not run into any obstacles. And we are on a spiral, and it is growing and elevating and taking us to places that we might not even be able to envision, which is the magic.
That's it. That's it. You gotta leave space and time for magic. I think, this too, like my ideas of manifesting are rarely time centric. Like the people are like, put a time on it, put a date on it, goals,
Right.
call it whatever, goals. And I don't recommend them because they are useless if you're at all like me. But I mean, it gives you an idea of like what people will expect from you though. So if you want to know like how to show up responsibly in your business, you just have to have that framework, and then let people know when to renegotiate, then when you're going to need to renegotiate. And
you might need to use your enlightened no.
The enlightened no. Agreed. Agreed. And that's the thing. Like that's what you get to do in your own business. Is I always have to, like I'm like pouring into people, is you get to choose. You are creating it. You get to choose how much time, right? You get to choose what you put in the bucket and what's not in the bucket, what I am not available for. Oh yeah, no. No. Oh, I'm sure you did think you could do that, but no.
Right. I'm sure I was the person you thought of for that. Thank you. No, that's not
No.
aligned with my genius.
Yes.
Let's try it on.
And in that 60, like, let's get rid of those things that are maybe in our zone of excellence. Like he's talking about those incrementals. Like if we can start with 10 minutes a day when we're focusing on our zone of genius, and then we can incrementally bring it up over time. But at least 10 minutes a day, living in your zone of genius, acting in it, then we can start turning that wheel around.
Stepping into this role, occupying this space. Oh, it's going to be such a great conversation next week. I hope you all can join us. You can get information. Oh, you can subscribe and check us out on YouTube, but our book club meetings do not go live on YouTube. So check us out on Buy Me a Coffee. You will find the information there. You can support what we're doing. Come join us in a meeting that is a safe space where we can really dig in and get real and support each other.
Yeah, some good stuff. Yeah, and also to remember, next week is the Thursday is July 4th. So we will not be meeting on a Thursday. We will be meeting on July 3rd on Wednesday. So just heads up.
Wednesday, the 3rd, Wednesday. Join us Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll have updates in the Buy Me a Coffee group, so you can always get updates.
We'll have to get the branding of this. We'll get that done in the book club.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us this week. Leave us a comment if you're catching the replay. Let us know what you think. Have you read The Big Leap? Are you going to check it out this week? We hope to see you next Wednesday for our book club meeting.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys there. Ta-ta.
Take care, everybody. Thanks again.